Welcome, everybody. I am David Ortinau, product manager at Microsoft. And we're going to be talking about multimodal applications. We're going to touch on AI Foundry for hosting and managing and tuning and doing all the model things. And then we're also going to talk about .NET MAUI. So .NET MAUI is my primary product at Microsoft. That is my email. I encourage you to reach out to me if you have questions, you have concerns, you want to know what's going on with .NET MAUI, you want to know what the future is, or you just want to tell me what your experience is and what we can do better for you. I am absolutely all ears, or in this case, all eyes, because I will be reading your email, and it will not be read to me out loud. We will be talking about reading things out loud. So, yeah, that's me, and I'm super glad you're here. My first time in Portugal. Anybody else's first time in Portugal? Yeah? All right, awesome. Who is from Portugal? All right, quite a few local-ishes. Food's been pretty good. I like it. Beer's not too bad either. Very nice. All right, so here's kind of an agenda of what we're going to talk about. We'll talk about what is this multimodal shift. Is it a shift? What's going on? What do we mean by this? We'll talk about the Foundry side of things, the multimodal patterns. So we'll talk about text with context, voice, and vision. And then we're going to go into some of the architecture of MAUI. How do you light up these features in .NET MAUI? What do you get out of the box? And then what libraries and things do you need to bring in order to be successful with multimodal applications? And then if we have time, I will recover some of the UX design principles. I say recover because I did a session yesterday in which I spent some time talking about 6 design principles. So if I don't get to that, I apologize, but we'll see how it goes. I only have a billion slides. So the multimodal shift. Gerald, what are we talking about here? Can you give us a summary of the multimodal shift? You are not even as good as Copilot. I don't know why we pay you. This is my coworker, Gerald Verslaus. That's the way I'm pronouncing it this trip. He is from the Netherlands. He is an engineer on the .NET MAUI team. If you want to talk about .NET MAUI engineering tasks, Gerald will see you after the session. Well, after the session, after his session. He has a session right after this in which you were talking about Aspire in MAUI, which I hear Aspire is a big deal. At what? In room 3. So leave here, go to room 3. Don't go into any other room. Is it an igloo?
I don't think so.
Not an igloo. Darn it. So multimodal shift. I call this the de-evolution of UI because everything that we've been doing up to this point is very UI driven, right? Of course, yes, we do have Alexa. We used to have Cortana. Some of us have Siri. How many of us do talk to our devices? Okay. How many of us talk to the people around us? All right, we don't call them devices, we call them other humans, right? But we certainly do communicate verbally in many, many cases, and so it is one of the modes in which we do communicate. And we provide direction, we ask for input, we provide input, and that is all about user interaction. We are interacting, right? So at its most fundamental layer, that is what we're talking about. In most applications, it's forms over data, so we're doing text. But voice is becoming much more common in applications, and it's much easier for us to adopt it in a multimodal way in order to become more productive, more efficient, more effective, right? And then vision. I would say vision's still a little bit more niche, and it's a bit more costly to process images and things like that with AI, but we can do a lot more with it today than we could even 6 months ago or a year ago. So I think that you're going to be finding many more opportunities to do that. Do you like me here in the center of the stage? Should I be over here? Where should I be? Because I noticed some people when they're in here, their heads get cut off by the light, and then like all you see is their forehead. All right. If nobody complains, I'm just going to keep wandering. So here's like a definition of multimodal. It's an experiences blended together with different input and output modes for creating richer, more natural interactions. So really we're getting back to almost, well, here's a great example, right? I am going to go to the grocery store because I need more coffee beans. And turns out my wife has a list of other things that she needs me to get. I am in the grocery store. Do I know where everything is in the grocery store? No, I do not. I know where the things that I get are in the grocery store. I know where the coffee is, I know where the tea is, I know where the snacks are, and that's about it. But maybe she wants me to go get the packet of ranch powder. Nobody here in Europe knows what ranch dressing powder is, do you? It goes in a lot of things that we make in the US. It adds a flavor that is apparently like a ranch, which sounds bad because then you have animals and it's dirty. I don't know. So this is a thing, but I have no idea where it is, right? And so I'm at the grocery store. I don't know what it looks like, et cetera. And so I'm like, where is it? She's like, oh, I think it's over by the blah-blah-blah-blah. And so I go over by the blah-blah-blah-blah, and I take a picture of the blah-blah-blah-blah section. And I'm like, where is it, right? And I send her the picture. Because I could try to describe to her in words what I'm asking for and the location that I'm in, or I could send her a picture, which provides more context. Does anybody do these sorts of things? Yes? Or maybe you send pictures of your MAUI to your doctor? Yes? No, we don't do that. That's too personal. So this is the kind of thing that I think we can all relate to. We're doing it in other places where it feels natural and where we see benefit for it. I think we're going to be seeing a lot more of this in our applications, especially mobile applications, because that pretty little mobile device is in everybody's hands, and we're all doing more of our work with it, not just our home life personal things with it. And so this is very much at the heart of not just end-user, consumery experiences, but also at the enterprise or the business level, how we enable our workers to do more, faster, better. So here's a great example from Microsoft. This one is called Nuance. Is anybody familiar with Nuance? Hands? Nobody. Awesome. So this is a great application of AI. Microsoft partnered with Nuance, it's been probably 5 or more years at this point. And they were an early tech company with AI. What they do is they help doctors, hospitals, people in the medical profession leverage AI in an ambient way to reduce the toil on doctors and to improve the whole interaction. So in the US, and maybe this is way better for those of you with really good healthcare systems, but you go into the office, you meet with your doctor, and you're talking to your doctor, and what's your doctor doing? He's not looking at you, she's not looking at you, they're typing on the computer, looking at your file, and it's like a very disconnected experience, right? They're hearing things you're saying, they're typing out orders, they're making notes, et cetera. But what if they could just interact with you? You're having a conversation. And what this product does, what Nuance does, is it's sitting on the wall or somewhere in the room, kind of like an Alexa type situation. It's listening to that conversation. It's providing transcripts in real time. But more than that, it's actually using AI to immediately bring out the actionable information and to set aside the chit-chat. So I was in a meeting one time, we were showing this to a customer and we were doing a live demo of it, and you start talking about the business of whatever it is you're talking about, and then you take a sideways journey into talking about sports, football, baseball, what have you, hockey. And then you get back on track with the business. And the AI, of course, is smart enough to know that is not pertinent to what we're doing. They're just having conversation. But the other things are pertinent. And so this saves, as you can see from the statistics, so much in terms of writing up orders, placing the orders, the transcripts, all the extra effort that doctors, nurses, nurse practitioners, et cetera, need to do. And this has been, again, that's been out there for a while. They were like a super early tech example of how this could really impact everybody's day-to-day lives. And what's super cool is that I could basically build this app now. I mean, it's not going to be as good without all the effort that they put into it, but the technology that they are using there is at all of our fingertips, sitting up in AI Azure Foundry, and you could basically build that experience in a few hours. It's pretty awesome. All right, so Azure AI Foundry. I think we call it Azure AI Foundry. Sometimes it's called AI Foundry. Sometimes it's, because if you go to the portal, it's ai.azure.com. But it's the Azure portal, right? So I think many of you have been to the Azure portal. You generally know what to expect. I am more of a developer, less of an IT administrator. I would imagine that website is more friendly to IT administrators. As a developer, I'm always like, there's too many things. Just give me the one thing. But you can do so much up there. It's really a platform as a service. you generally have your models, and so you've got all the OpenAI models, because Microsoft has the close partnership with OpenAI, and we've wrapped that, and so we provide you pretty much, I mean, I don't know the percentage, it's like high 90% of everything that you can get directly through OpenAI has been brought over, is made available in Foundry for you with those models, those services. But then you've also got the ability to build apps and agents based on those models and services that you're using. Everything that Microsoft is doing has some strong, heavy level of security and trust baked into it. I can tell you just from our own engineering team, and we're on the client side of things, we spend a significant amount of effort working on compliance and the legal aspects of it. And when we have those presidential orders that code needs to be this, that, and the other, those are all things that we have to do, and we do. We can't get away with not doing it. So security and trust, absolutely at the heart of everything we're doing. And then when you line this up with Visual Studio Code, you've of course got Azure DevOps, you've got GitHub, all these things can come together, work together for your applications in a unified way. And then, the big win here, of course, is that as soon as you do take your $1 million idea that we talked about yesterday in our session, and you bring it up to Azure, and you don't spend hardly any money making that thing work, and then suddenly all the users find out about it, and now you're going to be a gajillionaire. All you got to do is hit those sweet buttons to scale that thing up, right? It's probably not a button, it's probably a slider. Yeah? Has anybody ever scaled up? Yeah? Is it fun? I've never scaled up, so I don't know. All right, so again, tons of things in there. Always got to have a sandwich diagram of some kind with a bunch of layer cake things in it. But what you actually also get in it, in addition to like the OpenAI stuff, you remember cognitive services? A lot of that stuff is like pre-built, purpose-built for voice, for vision, for text recognition, for language understanding, and things like that. And those are also provided in addition to the open models, in addition to the models like from, what is that? The Hugging Face. The Hugging Face dot something. You can download those models as well. But in addition to that, you get these already made Azure services, and you can use them. It gets a little confusing. Because like you're going up there and you're like, hey, I just want to do the voice thing, right? And so then you're like presented with, well, you've got the OpenAI voice thing, but then you've also got this Azure service voice thing, and they're not really the same. And so hopefully after this session, you are less confused if that has been something that has been a stumbling block to you. But wait, there's more. And so this is like the level of Copilot, or not Copilot, Azure things where I start to glaze over. Anybody else? You're like, oh my gosh, there's so much. Oh my gosh. But yeah, obviously, once you get it into our cloud, into the cloud that we all know and love, you can take advantage of everything. I am not an Azure salesperson. Again, I work on the client. But I love the fact that when I'm building an application, it's almost always going to have a back end, and now it can have all the AI stuff in the cloud as well as on device. I know that I can get pretty much everything I need from Azure. And thankfully, now I have Copilot, so I don't need to understand all this stuff. I can just go to Copilot and say, hey, building an app. It needs to have some AI. I'm going to probably need a database. Probably going to need to be vector. I don't know what vector is, but you do, and you know if I need it or not. So go do all these things, and then it like picks and chooses from all these things, and it's amazing. And then, of course, you can monitor it and all those sorts of things. So yeah, these are kind of those Azure services that I mentioned, just to give you a sense of what's there. The OpenAI, of course, is the one that I think many people are using, especially when you're iterating, because again, you can like pick and choose your models. The AI search, speech, vision, content safety. Oh, I got hit on the content safety one recently. It was pretty funny. I was working on like diagnosing something on the client side, and I was working with GitHub Copilot. And I had like a task that was still running. It was like a web server task, right? And what do you do to a web server task? You issue a command that does a kill. Well, you start writing about killing things to GitHub Copilot chat, and you're going to get flagged. So they didn't flag me, but like I actually saw the response come back because it was the recommended task actually from Copilot, right? And it came back with this recommended task to kill it. And like I saw it, and then it immediately went away with a content warning situation. And I was like, thanks. So it's definitely working. The portal, so these are some of my favorite pages from the portal. So this is the landing page, and just to kind of give you a sense of where to be, what you're going to see, if you're totally unfamiliar with this, if this is the first time you've ever seen ai.azure.com. Oh, does this thing have a laser? Oh, it's got a focus thing, but I have to point it here? I'm not going to mess with that. It was going to be cool. All right, so this is basically all my resource deployments, okay? I don't know why I have so many. I think I only intended to have one, but because I work for Microsoft, I also kind of inherit things that are like part of my group or whatever. So probably if it's just your company or just you as an individual, this is a lot cleaner. But I pretty much just have the one where I'm going to host and play with my models and things like that. Really cool part, you've probably seen this in other presentations, is the model catalog. And so again, it has all the Hugging Face stuff in there. It has all the OpenAI stuff in there. It's got stuff in there, I don't even know what it is. For years, people kept talking about phi this and phi that. And I was like, fee, fi, fo, fum? What is that? But yeah, it's another model. And so you can go in there, you can pick them. You can also see, like, what are they good at? What are they not good at? Like, what are they rated for? What is their performance? Like, with latency, all those sorts of things. And you can compare them one against another. And the nice part is that with the way that we program with an abstraction, you can pick and choose and then, like, try different ones, right? And see if one works better for you. My experience, so the main app that I actually do with AI is a language learning application. And my language learning application is, of course, a ton of text and multiple languages. But I'm also using vision with it now so that it actually can provide me with images, analyze those images, and then I can try to describe them in my target language that I'm learning. And it will tell me, okay, yeah, that's a correct statement based on what we think is in that picture, that sort of thing. And then I also have it doing audio for shadowing and for reading to me. And so it's super convenient for me to be able to do all of that stuff from one place with one library and utilize all these features of Azure for the different things. Because one model is going to be really good at text, another one will have the ability to do audio. And they're not really the same one, and you won't want to use the same one for each, right? Especially when you're building something where you want the latency to be as low as possible. You want the responsiveness of the AI call. So that's super important. So when you go to look at your model deployments, and this is where you really get down into the specifics, you see that I've got a GPT-5 Mini deployed, and then I've got a Whisper model deployed. The Whisper model is the model in the cloud from them that gives me the audio control to do transcriptions and things like that. We do have a couple of new models that have been released from Microsoft that do multimodal things. I haven't personally had a chance to play with those yet. Has anybody else? No? Yeah. So, but they are out. I'm glad that Microsoft is getting in the model game, of course. More options, more better. And when you go into the details of one of them, so now I've gone into the details of that GPT-5 Mini deployment. So basically what I did was, in the model catalog, I found the model I wanted. I chose GPT-5 Mini. I said, deploy this. It deployed it to my resource, and then that's what you saw on the previous slide. It's now in my resource. And then now I can see the details of it. Now, I need to know from my app how to connect to that thing, right? So I'm going to need an endpoint, and I'm going to need an API key. So the thing is, you get this as your endpoint from here, and I guess this works with something, but it doesn't work with most client applications, because they put a bunch of extra information on the end of the URI that you don't need. So all the OpenAI responses, everything from that point on, you don't need any of that in the local application. That's going to be handled by the client that you're using. So it's actually a little bit easier to find that information from somewhere else. But as you can see, when I go, so before we were on model deployments, this is actually the model deployments tab area. And then we go to the services tab area. Now you can see all those pre-canned deployment services that I can use. I don't have to deploy models for those. Azure already provides that. That's basically what I believe was the cognitive services that we used. Like, I did the first audio, video, visual cognitive services thing at a build like 7 years ago or something. Like so it's been around for a while. AI is not a new thing. But we called it machine learning back then. So you have that. Now this is the overview tab. It actually shows up as the home icon in the left. So this is where I would recommend you go to get your endpoint and your API key, because they're right here and they're the right things. You don't have to worry about scraping things off and guessing. So as you can see, there's a Azure OpenAI capability, and I can pick that endpoint because that's the endpoint that I'm going to be using in this application. It's certainly easy to get started with, and you can always switch it later. And then my API key is right there. I can just copy it and paste it, not into my source code. You will not paste keys and secrets into your source code. Say it with me. I will not paste secrets and tokens in my source code. My Lord David. Wow, you guys, I almost had you. Yeah, that's the endpoint. Okay, so what does this look like with .NET MAUI? .NET MAUI is, anybody like .NET MAUI, you don't know what it is? It's totally cool. Raise your hand. Just stop it, Maddie. You know what it is. All right. So it's .NET for building Android, iOS, Mac, and Windows applications from one single code base to all 4 of those platforms. And if you want to get to more platforms like Linux or to WASM, you have great options like Avalonia, which has a booth out here. You have options like the Uno platform. And there's probably other options. You can go with Unity if you're really adventurous. So even within those, these concepts still apply, but there are generally some packages that you're going to want to use. The primary package is Microsoft Extensions AI. So this is the abstraction that we have created on the .NET team that allows you to work with an iChat client and other classes that are common and consistent across all the other implementations, and makes it easy. So if you're using OpenAI, if you're using Azure AI, if you're using Onyx, if you're using Foundry Local, if you're using Ollama, and there's probably others, there are compatible Extensions AI implementations of those things. For our purposes, we're going to use the OpenAI package, which gives us the wrapper. It's the glue between Microsoft Extensions AI and the official Azure AI OpenAI package. So you could use Azure AI OpenAI directly and go directly to OpenAI, for example, and do all the things they support. But with this pattern, using Microsoft Extensions AI, again, you get that plug and play. You can easily have within your application the ability to do an OpenAI model for this particular feature and to do an Azure model or a Hugging Face model or an on-device model that's very specific to some financial domain, right, that you trained yourself. And you can use that over here, all with the Microsoft Extensions AI iChat client patterns. So it's a huge benefit. You're almost never, I predict, you're almost never going to build an application that only uses one model for absolutely everything. Because at some point, you're going to want to fine-tune. You're going to want to get more specific for the tasks that you're doing. Starting with one, sure. But sticking with one for the whole thing, hardly ever. For our purposes, we're going to be talking about voice in the multimodal context. And for that, in .NET MAUI, you want to use the plugin.maui.audio. If you have any questions about this plugin, concerns, you want to contribute to it, Gerald's your guy. Gerald maintains this library. He okays all the PRs without reviewing them. So you don't need to worry about being criticized because we now have Copilot to review your PRs. So all you got to do is please Copilot, and you should be good to go, right, Gerald? Yeah. And you told Copilot what to care about and what not to care about. So cool. But that's a great library. It will handle both the recording aspect as well as playback. It does silence detection, I think sound detection, like the mic will just come on and all kinds of things. So it's a great library. I use it. Highly recommend it. Also, pretty much every application in the .NET MAUI space probably has this library. It's the community toolkit for .NET MAUI. So this is a collaboration, Microsoft and open source contributors maintained library. Has tons of stuff. Has views, has helper classes, has behaviors, all manner of things. Oh, You should never have to write a XAML value converter again. It's probably in this library. You don't need to write them. If you do need, something going to fall on me from over there. Did you hear that? Wouldn't be the first time I've been attacked. No, I'm just kidding. But tons of things in there. Yeah, the value converters. But even now, like these days, you don't even need to almost go find tons of libraries. You can just tell Copilot, hey, go write this thing. Like yesterday, before my session, I was looking for a health kit library to be able to display step counts and heart rate in my application. There really wasn't anything up to date out there on NuGet that I found readily. So I just asked Copilot to do it, and I had a working health kit implementation bespoke to iOS in my app within, I don't know, 10 minutes. It's fantastic. It's a brave new world we're living in. And then we have the Microsoft Extensions AI, Azure AI Inference. Say that 3 times fast. So this is one, I'm not using it in this particular case, but I wanted to point it out because this is the more generic implementation for AI Foundry. If you are going to go beyond using what's provided by OpenAI, and you're going to go look into other Hugging Face and whatever else that you find in the model catalog, you're probably going to want to use this package instead. Again, the only one you're really coding against is the Microsoft Extensions AI. And then the implementation is what gets provided by these other packages, like the OpenAI package and the Azure AI Inference package. Clear as mud? So what does it look like to set up one of these? So in most applications in .NET these days, you start out with a builder pattern. In .NET MAUI, this is in your MAUI program.cs. It's going to initiate the MAUI app. It is going to then initiate the MAUI Community Toolkit, because we're going to use that for sure. And then we can do this. This is a basic setup. You may find that your application requires more setup than this, so you may move it to a different part of the application. But just to get set up and quickly started, you can do it this way. Services.add_chat_client, and then provide the client that you're using with the API key that you've gotten from some other secret source, right? Typically, if you're doing mobile, you're going to have some authentication between the app and the cloud, and then it's going to provide to you in a secure manner the tokens and the endpoints that it needs to do the API calls, right? And then you securely store them on the user's device, or you tokenize them, your choice. But it's not in your source code. On my team is one of our security champions, and so not a meeting goes by that I don't get the spiel. And then, of course, we are using the GPT-5 mini model that I've deployed. This actually maps to the name of the deployment that I have in Azure OpenAI, Azure AI Foundry. It's not necessarily always going to be the exact model that you're using if your deployment name is different. So just a heads up about that. So in order to use this chat client, because I've put it into my services in the host builder, now it's available for dependency injection, right? And so I've got a constructor dependency injection here. The iChat client is coming in. It's going to be that OpenAI client that I newed up on the previous slide. And then in a method or whatever, I can do a chat client.getResponseAsync. There's getResponseAsync, getStreamingResponseAsync. You can eventually do getAudioAsync, all manner of other calls there. But the one that you'll probably be using the most if you're just doing a bunch of prompting and getting responses back is the getResponseAsync. Something I really like about this, and they were one of the first client libraries I saw that were providing this, and I think others have since adopted it, is the ability to pass in the type that I expect as a response. So before that was available, what you would do as part of your response at the end, you would say, and give me the response in this JSON format. And you would script out a sample of what that needed to look like. And then when the call would happen, you would just hope and pray that the AI believed you. But we all know AIs hallucinate. Anybody else in the room hallucinate? No, never mind. You don't have to answer that question. So it's super nice that we have a more strict, I can't say it's 100%, but it's as 100% as we can get, strict request and response that I'm going to ask for a sentiment model back, and you're going to give me a sentiment model back. So that makes it super easy. I don't have to worry about parsing errors and things like that. In my experience, it's been pretty rock solid. So hopefully that's going to be the case forever. But you start changing models and things, and it could be that the model just doesn't obey. So here's a more advanced setup, and I'll explain why you might want to do something like this. So in my application, I do a BYOK, bring your own key. So I don't provide an endpoint, I don't provide a token, I don't bake it into the app, I certainly don't leave it in the cloud. What I do is I say the end user can bring it themselves. The first step they do when they use the app is they plug in an endpoint and they plug in a key. Because I'm not selling anything, this is a horrible user experience, I totally get that. I'm not going to make $1 million off this application. But this was the easiest way to do it because I certainly didn't want to mess around with authentication. I once gave a presentation on authentication. It was a one-time deal. I don't want to do it again. So in this case, I am going to new it up within a service. So I have a service in my application called Chat Service, I think, or maybe it's called AI Service. And it's responsible for whenever a endpoint and a token changes or is updated, I can then new up the client that I'm going to use. Because prior to the user providing it, of course, I didn't have it. I couldn't do that. And then I'm going to load up the chat client for reuse later on. And then I can also do things like this chat builder, chat client builder. So you're going to use a chat client builder when you want to do additional customization on the chat client. And in this case, you can see that I'm adding some tools. When you're building client apps and you're wanting to include additional functionality to AI to do things, you might think to yourself, oh, if I want to tell AI how to do special powers, I need to give it an MCP. Because everybody talks about MCP. MCP is the way to superpower charge your AI, right? In this case, probably not. Because you're building a client application, and if the logic for the thing that you're going to add superpowers to the AI is in your application, it just needs to be a tool. So that's generally going to be a static class with a method that gets called, and it can just go off and do that thing, right? So in my case, I have a location tool. It provides a simple service. It uses Google API because they have the maps, and it does a, here's my location, are there any XYZ nearby? And that XYZ could be, you know, coffee shops or grocery stores or car mechanics, right? And then Google will bring back to me a bunch of locations that I can then plot on a map or just return in a response. Because AI by itself may not be able to, and generally won't be able to, do map-like things. As a matter of fact, I tried that in, what was it? It was either ChatGPT or Copilot on my phone, and it was like, no, I can't show you a map, I'm sorry, but I can show you a map later. And I was like, yeah, right, and it totally did not show me a map later. But that's the way it goes, overpromise, underdeliver. And then, of course, I do the use function invocation, which tells the chat client, hey, you've got functions, you can use them, please do that. So superpower it that way. You probably don't need an MCP. And the usage is very similar. You know, I'm going to do a get response async. I'm going to pass it whatever type I expect in response. And then I'm going to do something with that response. Of course, since it's typed, I can now go to the properties of the thing. In this case, it's returning back a personalized greeting. All right, so let's dig into some multimodal patterns. We've got about 26.5 minutes left. So before talking about multimodal, you can do it. We've got unimodal. You always wondered what the opposite of multimodal was, didn't you? Unimodal. What is that competition you have here, where the countries all face off with their special talents? What? Eurovision. All right. Yeah. Just songs? Unitalent. Okay. All right. I feel like okay. Do they sometimes sing like on like unicycles? All right. Okay. You've distracted me. So we're all familiar with this, right? It's what we do. It's a chat text box. It's all chat. It's all text. We've had these conversations before, and that's a good start. Now, if we want to actually get multimodal, we need to add some other context, some other input that is not just the text that I'm typing, right? So in this case, and I think this was Copilot, I said, hey, I'm doing this traveling, the same thing I just did before. I'm traveling to Lisbon. I've never been there. What should I see? And I never told it where I was staying. What I did do was I sent it this PDF that I received from the conference organizers that included all the information that I didn't read about the conference, because why would I do that? And by doing so, it knew where I'm staying, and it was able to give me some sites and some things to do kind of based on that location, generally in and around. Because my prompt was also, did I say this? Like, I really need to stay awake. Maybe I didn't say that, yeah. But that's generally my thing, right? Like when I land here from the United States, I'm super jet lagged. I need to stay awake until at least 8 p.m. So I'm able to get much better responses that way because I provided some additional context. And the conversation gets much more interesting. So it knows that I am staying at the Myriad, which is, basically the same distance that you walk to get in here. I have to walk around the building to come in. It's almost a full mile, almost is. So probably hardly needs an explanation, but this is my task to do app. If you do a file new .NET MAUI app from Visual Studio or from Visual Studio Code, and you say, yes, provide sample content, you get this application. So it's a fancier, much better looking, right? Much better looking to-do app than your typical Hello World to-do app. But it's got projects, it's got to-dos, and it's, of course, all text-based. So it's the experience that we've all come to know. But we want to do better than that. Now, I inserted this slide here because you may, at this point, be thinking, yeah, this all looks great, but is this really for work? You said it was for work earlier, but is it really for work? And what we have found, we have very talented, very smart, all have their doctors and PhDs, research teams, working with our developer teams, with our Outlook, and Office teams, with our Surface teams, et cetera, learning about how people use their devices with work. And what we have discovered is that more and more and more people, as time goes on here, are using their mobile devices, even their personal mobile devices, to do work. And maybe they're doing a little bit of work on their laptop, desktops, and then on their phones, but in many cases, they're doing it completely from their phones. Our lead engineer, Shane, said to me, he said, here's my dream, is that I just sit on the couch with my phone and tell GitHub Copilot what to do. And I never have to go back to my computer. I can just do it all from there. And we're pretty much there with that, actually. And I believe there's even an extension that you can just talk to GitHub Copilot. Of course, you can dictate to it as well. But we're very close to being there. But this is from Katie. She's on our research team. And so, yeah, voice is not a novelty. It really is about speed, accessibility, multitasking, and flow. We talked a little bit yesterday in my session about emotional design. So it's not just about, the typical accessibility things that we might think of, vision, hearing needs, and things like that. But it may also be, hey, this person has a certain emotional perspective or a bent, and we need to correct for that as well. I was talking to, I believe it was Copilot, and I don't do a whole lot of voice interaction, but in preparation for this, I dug in, and I'm going to do it. And so I was talking to Copilot about something, and Copilot was extremely cheery. And I was not looking for cheery. As a matter of fact, it was so cheery, I was like, I don't even trust you right now because I feel like you're totally gaslighting me. And so what I would expect is that it would hear in my voice the tension, the displeasure, the reticence, and it would correct itself in some way, right? And I think we will get to that in the future, because if you're talking to somebody, particularly somebody that knows you, and I think in the future we can expect the AI that we interact with, the apps that we interact with, we expect them to know us in a very secure, privacy-oriented way, absolutely, but to know us. If the person knows you, that you're speaking to, they're going to sense pretty quickly. They're going to have nunchi. They're going to be able to know, are you cranky? And I can do that generally with Maddie and Gerald because we worked together for a long time, a little bit with James. James is a little bit more of a black box, but I've known James for a long time too. So I could probably generally know, okay, James is tired, right? Because I know them. I would expect AI to be able to do that. And that's another kind of factor to be thinking about as you're building your applications. What are the emotional needs, the emotional intelligence that this app could provide that would really be useful? If you're dealing with a lot of software developers who are all introverts, yeah, maybe the AI model shouldn't be super over-the-top cheery and whatever. It should be a bit more sarcastic. Yeah? Who would prefer a more sarcastic AI? Come on, right? Team sarcasm. Love it. So now when it comes to voice multimodal, what can we expect? So this is again from research. Some of this is our research. There are some citations here, Forrester Report, Grady Anderson, and Moldstud. I don't know how they got that name, but Moldstud Research Team Report. So published reports, Journal of Mobile Health, et cetera, came up with these statistics from some of their findings. And you can see that when adding audio, adding voice to applications, they're seeing increased retention within the application, more usage. They're seeing users are using more voice commands over text commands and things like that. I know that just walking around with my coworkers, I have observed many of them speaking into their speakers of their phones to tell it what to do or to do a text message even. And that's not really the way I roll. I'm more of a, I don't want to disturb anybody with my noises. But certainly that is something that we're seeing a rise of. So plenty of good evidence here and data to substantiate that this is worthwhile doing in our applications. And it's not really hard. There are several modalities to think of when we're talking about voice interaction. Of course, it's voice as input. So it's a transcription. It's providing a command. Hey, Siri, take me to the nearest pub. You know, those sorts of things. But we also have voice as output. So maybe you're in a situation where you cannot, or the user cannot read a screen, but they need to be able to receive the output from the command or the thing that's happening. So audio cues, you know, that it's reading back to them a status of what's going on. Matter of fact, I use this technique with Visual Studio Code and GitHub Copilot because I send Copilot off on a task and I'm going to go make a coffee, right? But if it's done, I want to know that it's done. So I've told VS Code, when you're done, you need input from me, make a sound. And I gave it the sound to make, right? So that's similar to what we're talking about here. And then voice as conversation. And this is more of the GitHub, or the Copilot chat, the ChatGPT chat, Alexa assistance. You're having some kind of a back and forth working things out. So here's a voice demo. We'll see if the audio is going to work. You're not going to be able to hear, I think, the audio input from this. Maybe you can. I can't remember which ones captured audio input. But basically what I was telling it was, hey, I think I'm in Seattle, and I need a bunch of things to do down around Pike's Place, blah, blah, blah. And from that unstructured rambling that I provided to the application, it was able to go provide me with a project and tasks to do. So going from unstructured information, like a rambling voice message, to a structured set of information which my database expects, right? Database, yeah, I could store unstructured stuff there, but I need to be able to do things with it, so I want the structure, right? We're building an application. So it's very good at doing those sorts of tasks. In order to do voice capture and input, again, it's the plugin.maui.audio extension. You establish an audio manager. That audio manager gets registered in your builder pattern in the MAUI program.cs. That gets injected into whatever class. In this case, it's an audio service class. And then I'm going to instantiate the recorder. I'm going to create, you know, where do I want this file to be saved? Because it generally needs to write to a file for speed. And then I can start recording. Once I've got that recording, I can stop it. And now I have an audio file that I can do something with. Not that much code, right? Super easy. Then, when I want to transcribe that audio, this is where the chat client comes in. I get my chat client. I have a stream of the audio file, so that path is to the audio file. I get a stream of it, and then I'm going to send it to my client. In this case, in this particular situation, I'm using a Azure Foundry AI transcription service model. And then I'm going to get the audio client, and I'm going to transcribe the audio async. Now, this works super well, and I think this situation would work best when you do want to do more than just text transcription, when you want to have some emotional intelligence from the audio, right? So if you need to know, is the user angry? Are they happy? Are they in a hurry? Are they, other things? Or you want to determine something that is not part of the actual text and add that context to your response, then this is a great way to go. The reason I emphasize that is because sending an audio file over the wire, especially from a mobile device, is a lot of bytes. And if it's just text that you need to actually send, you're better off doing the transcription on device and then sending the text to the chat client, right? Make sense? It's kind of logical, but I also wanted to emphasize to you that we can expect AI to be able to do more than just transcribe the text, but to grab the nuance from it that we can then use as additional context to provide better AI responses. So here is on device. This is coming from the community toolkit for .NET MAUI. So what you're going to see here is it's going to get the transcription. It doesn't record my voice as I'm speaking, but you'll hear it do the voice output part. Maybe I need to actually click on it. Boop. There we go. Something to keep in mind when you're doing voice transcription is you want to be aware of the content, the culture of the audio. Can you hear that? I don't think.
As AI becomes cheaper, smaller, faster, and generally more consistent, it will be used more ubiquitously in our applications.
So by default, that is what you're going to get on device. If you're lucky, it's going to be that nice. On some other platforms, the default voice is worse, right? Or you probably have a very small subset of audio models, voice models, from which to choose. So how many of you would prefer to use a better voice in your application that sounds more natural? Me too. But just to give you a sense of what's available and what you can do. So I use this to do the transcription part on device. I do not use this to play back the voice. All right, next. So this is capturing voice input, speech to text in the application. Here's what the code looks like. And this is me doing it from another application. Do I need to click play on that one too? But you can see it's pretty straightforward. This is the community toolkit. It's a speech-to-text client. So I just establish a handler for the updated and the completed events. I start listening to it, and then in those events, I can record it back. So you can see that I'm actually getting some pretty messed up text here, right? The reason I'm getting that messed up text in the transcription is because it thinks that I speak Portuguese, and I do not speak Portuguese. Obrigado is about the only word I know. So I was speaking English, it thought it was Portuguese, and it gave me some nonsense. But it gave me a bunch of interesting tasks to go do, so that's fun. And just one note, the reason that you see the tasks have the gradient outline in it, I'm indicating to the user that these are AI-generated tasks, and I'm also expecting the end user to validate the tasks before committing it to the database. So this is kind of one of the UX guidelines that I probably won't get to a little bit later, but it's about making sure that the user is always in the loop, and it's transparent to the user when AI is doing something on their behalf. So keep that in mind. Have a visual indicator, maybe even explicitly tell the end user, this was AI generated or something like that, so that they know. In the application, it also has a whole page where it can say, here's all the context of what we know about you as a user, and you can edit it, you can remove it, etc. All right, already did that. So we have on-device text-to-speech, which we showed. We have AI text-to-speech, which we also showed, which has a lot more latency, but you can do it on device. It requires on-device and with the cloud. You can do AI Live. So AI Live is more of that conversational ChatGPT Copilot mobile app experience where you're having a conversation. Where it's at right now, I hope it gets better because I appreciate being able to talk to it. However, I want to see the conversation also in text. And I want to see, when we're talking about a location, show me the location. Like, you should be able to be multimodal. I'm being multimodal with you. Can't you be multimodal with me? And so far, it's not really good with it. But to do the AI live thing, you totally can do this today. You could build your own ChatGPT app with it, and it's just a different endpoint, a different service that you're going to use. And then this is one that we'll get into now, which is the AI specialized voice models. 11 Labs is probably the one that most people have heard of. It's the one that I'm using. It has a ginormous catalog of voice models from which to choose, and they can be very, very natural. In fact, if you want to create your own voice model, if you love your voice so much that you can't get enough of it, or here's what I would do. I would want to torment my coworkers. I would create a voice model of my voice, and then I would somehow force it onto their phones and make them hear me as like a wake-up alarm. That's my $1 million idea right there. It's coming. It's coming. So here is Sentence Studio. This is my language learning app. And we'll get this video going. So I got a bunch of things in here. This is the reading portion. Should have some audio. You got the audio with this? No? How do I rewind? Can't rewind. I would like to try to get the audio working on this one because you can hear the voices, the voice models, they're really good.
영화는 재밌지만 가격이 비쌀 수 있어요. 가격이 비쌀 수 있어요.
Yeah, there should be another one, I think. So then I can also type in my own text, of course, and I can type in English. But you can see I've already got like a handful of models in this application for different voices for, professional, entertaining, like news reading, men and women, different, to help train my ear, etc. And so, of course, I picked these models by sampling.
Hello, welcome to my podcast. My name is Hyun Bin.
Right? Better than the first audio clip we heard, right? And the really, again, a very nice part of this is not just a ton of models, but I was able to go find models specifically in the language that I was interested in. Because if I used one of their generic models, it would sound like a foreigner speaking Korean, and that's not what I needed for my learning experience. I needed what was a naturally Korean speaker trained model. So no matter what your language is, you can do this. And if you're serving customers in a variety of regions and you want to give them voice models for the region in which they live, you can do this. I think it's super useful, especially because I've done enough traveling to know. You can be in one village and go 3 miles down the road to another village, and they can't communicate to each other without a lot of effort because the accent's different enough, maybe even some of the vocabulary is different enough. It can be very, very tricky. And so even if it's not tricky, Gerald complains to me all the time about the Dutch accent of certain people. And they're speaking the same language. He's like, I can't stand that accent. Right, Gerald? So it makes him uncomfortable. And we don't want Gerald to be uncomfortable when he's using our application. So 11 Labs, that's your go-to for that. The implementation, super easy, and you can see it looks very much like everything else that we've been doing. We create a request. We then send the request to the 11 Labs client. We get back the audio bytes, and because I have a beautiful plugin.maui.audio, I can provide that audio stream right to the player and play it. I can also save them for later playback using the file system I/O that's baked into MAUI and is fully cross-platform. So real quickly, just a little bit on vision, and we're almost done. So here's an example of me using vision. I was talking to Copilot, or maybe that's ChatGPT. Their UIs look so similar that it's actually very hard for me to tell. I think, no, okay, the first one is Copilot, the next one's ChatGPT. And I was like, hey, again, I'm going to Portugal location, can we look at a map? And it was like, no, I can't look at a map. And I'm like, well, I can. And so I pulled up my phone and I took a picture of the map from my computer. I'm like, now can we talk about the map? And it was like, oh yeah, totally, I can talk about that map. So very useful way for me to show AI that I am more powerful than it is, at least in terms of pulling up maps. The next one, this ChatGPT example with the pictures of bark from a tree, several years ago, like 3 years ago, 2 years ago, we had locusts. It was locust season, and they were like the 7-year and the 14-year all at the same time. And so it put a lot of stress on the trees. And I was like, I wonder if ChatGPT could help me figure out why my tree is turning black. The leaves are turning black and falling off, the bark is turning black. And so I was having a conversation with it, and it was like, hey, could you show me? And I was like, hey, I could totally show you. So I took a bunch of pictures, and I even circled where I was talking about, and it was able to give me a much more specific diagnosis of what was probably going on. And it was totally right. I talked to an arborist about it later, and he's like, yep, that was right. The last sample here is the vision capability inside of Copilot Chat. Has anybody used the vision capability in Copilot Chat? You're gonna now, because it's stinking amazing. So you can provide it with any image, set of images, and you can say, hey, would you go build this for me? Or hey, would you go fix the circled area? Or hey, whatever you can imagine. If you've got a Figma document, which is a visual document, you can provide that as well, although it's a bit more structured, right? And I don't know if you saw that, but it pretty much has already rebuilt this whole screen while I've been blabbing about what it's doing. Very cool feature. I use it for this purpose. I also use it for when I get an error message and I don't have the ability to copy the text or something like that. I take a picture of the screen that I'm looking at. I take a screenshot on my phone, whatever, that's got the message on it, and I send it back. If I'm working on nudging UI around, I'll take a picture of the thing where the UI is wrong, and I'll tell it where it's wrong, and I'll send them the picture. And it actually works really, really fast. Initially, it was a slow process. Now it's super fast, so highly recommend you check that out. Here is the vision demo inside the Task app. And I took a picture of my screen, and I know you can't read that, but it's actually a recipe for banana bread with walnuts. Who is team walnuts? All right, we got a few team walnuts. Who is team chocolate chips? So we have some both. We have some both walnuts and chocolate chips. That's good. My wife is fully on the chocolate chip side. I am on the walnut side with like a couple of chocolate chips would be okay. So what it did, again, it took unstructured, really, information, although it is a recipe. But it not only took the recipe, but it gave me a shopping list that was specific to the amounts that I needed, right? So it wasn't just, oh, you're going to need milk. It's like, you're going to need this much milk. So it did a little bit more sense-making on the back end. So a great example. I could see this totally being very useful if you've got like a field service engineer and they're coming in to fix a thing. Like I was walking past a guy on the way back to the hotel last night after the conference. He had his hood open and he was taking pictures of it. I'm like, probably working with his mechanic, ChatGPT, right? I would. It works. Of course, not on a Tesla. You wouldn't open the hood of a Tesla and do that. You'd be like, there's no engine. Oh, no. Old joke. All right. So picking a photo is super easy. You don't need any extra extensions for this in .NET MAUI. You can take a photo. You can pick an existing photo. It's the Media Picker API. Super easy to use. And then you can send that up to whatever AI model you're working with. It's as simple as a chat message, and you provide data content. Up to now, we've been providing text content with most things. In this case, you provide data content, and you give it the image and send that up. So I mentioned we're probably not going to cover this, so I will skip to the really, really good part, which is this slide. Because this slide has a AKA MS/RAI, responsible AI. That is going to get you all the information, and there's a bunch of useful, helpful things there. There's a toolkit. There's, how do I make sure that it's governed properly, all the things. So it's super, super useful. For the samples that I showed, it's pretty much all at this GitHub address. It's the telepathy app. That is my AI-infused to-do app. You can see the implementations of all the things. You can see the history of all of my commits that AI wrote. Very exciting. I believe my narrator of this app is a space commander. So usually it's like, yeah, Space Commander, you defeated the evil bug. And that's it. So thank you very much for coming. I hope that was useful. Woo. And that's my last session of the conference. I am now one of you.